Anyway, folks, we got some big updates coming out of one of my favorite small cap Canadian holdings called ThreeD Capital. This is kind of like a diversified holding company that gives you exposure to everything from crypto to AI to even infrastructure oriented companies that are all on the cusp of commercialization. I feel like the stock really diversifies the risk and kind of takes the management control out of my hands when it comes to picking a lot of these small cap companies. And as a year to date, it's trading down about 22%, has been excessively volatile. I mean, up as much as 100% to where it sits today, where I think there's some pretty discounted value because the stock's trading at 31 cents. Yet basically they announced the unaudited April 30th net asset value per share of 75 cents. So I think we do have a lot of room here considering that the owners, the managers, they're buying shares back. I mean, ThreeD Capital's buying their own shares off the market value here. So like I said, it's just something that I'm slowly accumulating. Currently I have about 1,250 shares and I'm looking to slowly cost average month over month here just to deal with some of the volatility risk. But I wanted to take a look at just some of their holdings that we've discussed in the past, like Hypercycle, because this gentleman gives a fascinating look how multiple computers, large language models, these defined nodes can operate together rather than just having one data center controlling the entirety of the compute power. But just take a listen. This is fascinating.
We can create an AI system and eventually an AGI system which has no central owner or controller, and it's splayed out into pieces that are running on different machines all around the internet. And we can use this to help explore hybrid AGI architectures where one node is running a logic engine, one node is running an evolutionary learning engine, one end is running an LLM, one end is running some new thing that I never heard of, right? And we have an abstract interface that different AIs running on different machines can use to communicate their properties, to exchange data, to make requests to each other. You can then have intelligence sort of crystallize at an emergent level from the interaction of these different AI agents running on different machines owned and controlled by different people, right? And this is the original notion of singularity.
Now, this is so fascinating because Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, he made that note that we need to spend trillions of dollars to build a supercomputer powerful enough to get to artificial general intelligence, whereas this company is looking at it, why don't we just take all the supercomputers that exist and find a way to cohesively connect them? And blockchain seems to be one of the solutions for this. I highly recommend coming and watching some of these videos on ThreeD Capital's channel. They give incredible insight into the founders of some of these massive innovations. And even, again, like more infrastructure-based companies, they have companies in here that are resource focused on the electrification of the future and getting the resources and the metals that are required for that, like nickel. We've talked about things like Neurable in here, which is taking your brain waves, recording them through basically just your headphones with EEG to actually offer inputs into your devices. Like I said, ThreeD Capital is probably one of the most fascinating, holding companies I've explored in a very long time. And as of recently, they're still expanding. They've even invested into a psychedelic company called Lofos, which I'm just going to abbreviate to because basically under the term agreement, Lofos will issue and sell about 2.125 million common shares and about 2.125 common shares purchase warrants, basically to ThreeD Capital at a price of 6 cents per purchase Lofos unit. And Lofos is basically a psychedelic company that is focused on mescaline, the chemical that is primarily found in peyote. And peyote is a lot more advanced, basically from a regulatory standpoint in many countries, including Canada here. And they've also reduced the growth cycle. This is one of those plants that takes 15 years, like a decade plus to mature the chemical compounds, whereas they've been able to reduce it down to just a few years. I believe this is another fascinating company to look into because I still believe that psychedelics are going to be one of the forefronts of a major change in pharmaceuticals and how pharmaceuticals treat mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, all that different stuff. And we're just on the cusp of starting to see these effects from phase trials. We still got a little ways to go, but I think this is, again, we're going to be one of the most fascinating sectors in the coming decades. And again, one of my favorite holdings as well is one we talked about with TotaQ. I mean, TotaQ is, again, building the railways for cheap payments. You go to small towns, you can't buy something for $1 with a Visa because the transaction costs too much from the current railways that are set up. And this company is making it so you can make transactions as low as like a penny or less, and it's still profitable for the company. They partnered with like Royal Bank, for crying out loud. Like, some of the people that are helping them achieve this are mega companies that want a foothold in this industry. So, it doesn't matter what industry you're interested in. I think 3D Capital can really offer, some kind of investment thesis, and really only one or two of these have to work out in a substantial way to justify this investment, trading for around like $16 million, which kind of seems insane for, the massive value just one of these companies could offer in the next decade. But I will pass that question off to you. I'd love to know what you think about this in that comment section below.